Hey everybody, it's Margaret, and welcome to the third Chatterbooks. Is there an echo already? Oh, brother.
Yeah, but do I need to do something if I have Facebook open on the other?
Welcome. Do you have your other screen open to see the chat, Maggie?
I do.
Can you mute it?
I just muted it.
Okay, hello. Is it echoey again? Okay, we're good. Okay, so hello, do-over. Hey everybody, it's Margaret, and welcome to our third ever Chatterbooks. And this month we have read the book Everything's Relative by Jenna McCarthy. If you don't know what our group is, we are an online YouTube book club with a live chat and discussion every month, the last Sunday of the month. And we have rotating panelists. Maggie just so happens to have been on before, but I was so glad that she came on again. Thank you. And I'll tell you more about it at the end of the show, but let's introduce our panelists for today. First up, Jenna McCarthy.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Tell us about yourself.
I am an author. I think I have 13 books out right now. That sounds like presumptuous, like you would think that I would know, but I have in various stages of publication. But I write funny books. Hopefully you find them funny. I have children's picture books, I have middle grade fiction, I have adult nonfiction, and adult fiction. So I think we're talking about my latest novel is Everything's Relative.
Yes. And Maggie?
I'm Maggie Donapel. I live in Pennsylvania with my husband and 3 cats in a 1-bedroom apartment at the moment. And I'm a member of the ILOT, International League of Thrifters group. And I love to read, so happy to be here.
Yes, thank you so much. Okay, so we may have Glenda jump in. She was going to come on, but I haven't heard from her, so she may jump in at some point. Sometimes she has problems with her connection. So I want to say hey in the chat real quick because we've got some friends here. Nellie, hello, and Christine Ray. Do you know Christine?
I do. Hi, Christine.
She was one that was in Chatterbooks on Facebook saying, your book.
Oh my gosh, she's the one that told me about you. She's awesome. Thank you, Christine.
Yes. Okay. And Christine, she's a thrifter too, right?
Christine is?
Is she? I don't know.
I don't know.
Well, she's in the chat. Let us know. Are you in ILOT, Christine? Are you in ILOT too? I think you are. I think so. Okay, so I like to get a little information about the author. Oh, I hear the echo again. Uh-oh. I like to try to find information about you before we get started, but I couldn't find a whole lot. Like a mystery.
I'm so secretive. Really? I have the biggest mouth ever. What do you want to know?
Well, I was like, I found out you were born in New York, moved to Florida, but now you're in California.
Yep. I'm not like witness protection. I'm not running away from anything, I swear. I usually either chase boys or weather. It's kind of like my thing. But now I have the perfect boy and the perfect weather, so I'm not going anywhere.
Right? You said Santa Barbara, is that right?
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Yep.
So are your parents still in Florida?
No, my parents are both deceased. So, but my mom was in Florida when she passed away, and my dad was in North Carolina after Montana, we're slightly nomadic people, but yeah, I have a lot of family in Florida and New York right now. Nice. Still.
And then I was trying to find out if you had siblings, because this book had so much to do with siblings.
I do, and let me put it this way: there's 3 of us. The oldest one is very type A and neurotic. The youngest one is a high school dropout, recovered drug addict, and then there's me in the middle. Coincidence?
I don't know. Okay, cool. All right. So, and then I was going to share, you have a lot of other books. You write books, adult books, and children's books, and middle school books.
I do.
Correct? And you said earlier there's about 13 of them?
Yeah.
Do you have one about, because I'll get to the TED Talk in a second, but do you have one about the relationship, husband relationship, marriage stuff?
Oh yeah, that was what the TED Talk came from. So I have a shelf up here. Hang on. That would be this one. Can you see it? If it was easy, they'd call the whole damn thing a honeymoon.
Yes.
This was my first memoir. This is the story of this is a love letter to my husband with the lady with their head in the oven. Yeah, so that's what that came from. I had my very first books were about pregnancy and parenting, and because I went through that process and I was like, holy shit, nobody told me any of this. Literally, back then, this is 15 years ago, there was the Girlfriend's Guide, and that was about it. And she still didn't tell me a lot of things that I found very surprising as a new mother. And so as a writer, I was writing for magazines, and I had been for 20 years. And I thought, this is bigger than a magazine article. Like, women need to know that they wear diapers and that they have holes on the sides of their nipples. Like, literally nobody told me these things. And I was like, I'm 30 years old. I wasn't like a child bride.
Right.
And I thought, this is worthy of 70,000 words or such that I can tell women, that because they will need to know this. And so I did that. I wrote 3 or 4 books about parenting and having little ones, and then they started getting older, and I kind of got bored with that, and I looked at my husband and I was like, oh yeah, him, he would make a good subject. So I wrote about that.
Awesome. I'm gonna have to go back and read that one. And you're right about the parenting stuff. When I had my first kid, I started calling everybody I knew that had had babies before me.
From literally down to everything. Like, I remember we were considering names when I was pregnant, and people would ask us, we're like, well, we're kind of thinking about Scarlett. And every person, oh no, Scarlett's a stripper name. We had a dog named Scarlett. It's like, if I already had the baby and I introduced you to her and I said, here's little Scarlett, you would shut your mouth. You would not say that, right? But nobody told us that. So then we were like, okay, don't share the name. Nobody gets to know the name. Big secret, There's so much that nobody tells you. So I wrote that. That one was called The Parent Trip from High Heels and Parties to High Chairs and Potties.
So did you name her Scarlett?
No, I didn't, because of the stripper dog thing. The stripper dog. That's all I could picture. I'm like, well, okay, thanks, guys. No, she's Sophie. And obviously it's a beautiful name, Sophie Bella, but it's like, I'm not telling anybody. I don't want to know about your bunny rabbit that died that was named Sophie, and you'll be sad every time you look at my daughter. Not my problem.
Okay, so when I was researching for I make it sound so fancy. An hour ago, I was looking for questions and researching you. And I found out that you did a TED Talk, and I was so excited. I had to watch it while I was getting ready. So tell everybody a little bit about TED. I'm sorry, Maggie, I feel like I'm just like, we're going to get to the questions in a second.
Okay.
What TED Talks are and what your TED Talk was about.
Well, my TED Talk was a total fluke, by the way. My talk was called What You Don't Know About Marriage, and it came after this honeymoon book. And what happened was, one of my girlfriends was a volunteer organizer. So TED, if you don't know, stands for Technology, Entertainment, and Design. There are speeches, they're given at conferences around the world. There's TED in Beijing and TED in Bhutan and all over the place. And you get up and speak when you think you have, this is a TEDism, an idea worth spreading. I did not think I had an idea worth spreading. I thought that I had a friend who was one of the organizers of an event and that I wanted to support her by attending it. But even to attend, even to sit in the audience, you have to apply. So I fill out the application and it says, tell us a little about yourself. So I say, I'm an author and I have all these books and, yay. Link to a couple things that you've done online. So I had made a book trailer for this book that seriously is my favorite thing. If you Google McCarthy honeymoon trailer, you'll find it. I'm in the bathtub and my husband's peeing and it's awesome.
Yeah.
So I linked to that, and the organizer actually called me because my number was on the application, and he said, thank you for applying. And I said, you're welcome. Thanks for calling. And he said, we'd like you to consider speaking. And I was like, no, thank you. No, like, I'm not a speaker. I always joke, I call myself a sit-down comedian, right? Because I write funny, but I write it with my fingertips. I don't write it with my mouth. And, I was like Wonder Woman. I was deflecting. No, but I can't. Oh, that's not what I do. And he's like, and then he goes, well, I'm not saying you're going to get picked. I'm just saying you should apply. And then I was all, oh, dude, no, you're so going to pick me. You just threw down the gauntlet. So, he said, maybe you could talk about writing. And I was like, I don't know shit about writing. I just do it. I don't know how, I don't know how to tell you how to do it. I just do it. And so I thought, well, I've just been researching, I know everything about all the research about marriage because I was incorporating it into this book. So I said, what about that? And he said, pitch it to me. So I did, and I got picked, and so it became this thing. And it's funny because I wasn't a speaker. You know, you never want your TED Talk to be the first time you've ever gotten on a stage in front of hundreds of people with no cue cards. But that was me. And I did pretty good, but now because of that, I speak all around the country regularly. Probably about once a month, they fly me somewhere to speak to these groups. And I'm like, I swear I'm better than my TED Talk. Like now I'm good at it, but I wasn't then. That's
Oh,
for
no,
sure.
it was so good.
No, literally, first of all, horizontally striped sweater dress. Not a good call for your first TED Talk. Sweat literally pouring. Like, I'm like, can you see it? Is it dripping like around? I was so nervous and so sweaty. And I was like, is my lip quivering? Can you see me shaking with my little clicker? Now I don't even think about it, but it was pretty nerve wracking.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome though. Okay, are we ready for the book now?
Yes, I am.
So we read the book. Everything's Relative, which is about three sisters. Their father passes away. I'm just giving a quick synopsis. Their mother becomes totally different than what their life was normally like. Very controlling, and I don't know. How would you describe her, Maggie? The mom. Sorry, I just threw you out there again.
Juliana.
Yes, Juliana.
I just couldn't get why she would I understand that she was grieving, but why she would turn on her daughters the way she did. And I just think somewhere back in the book, it talked about maybe her fear. And I think that could have been the case, because I'm also one of three girls. I'm the middle. And my mother was a single mother, not under the same circumstances, but she was hypercritical, and not to the extent of Juliana, but reading this book, it kind of gave me a little insight into her.
Oh.
Maybe it was that fear of you being the only one. Now, these three girls are your sole responsibility.
Right.
What if you're doing it wrong? There's got to be an element of fear there. But still, I can't understand the extent she went to,
Yeah. So in the book, okay, spoilers if you haven't read it yet, Mom ends up passing away and has left this will that she's got like $27 million or something along those lines. And the girls have to fulfill certain requirements in order to get it. And they have a year to get these requirements fulfilled. And I didn't get till later that it was an all or nothing deal. Like if one of the sisters didn't do her share, is that right?
Yeah.
It's all or nothing, everybody. Yeah. So later I was like, wait, why is she worrying about what her sister's doing,
All or nothing.
Yeah. So, okay. And that was one of my questions. I was going to ask, where do you guys fall within the sibling scale? And both of you guys said you were in the middle.
Middle, yeah.
Yeah. And I'm one of originally two, and then our family's blended, and so I became one of the middles of four. Oh. So I feel like, I don't know, am I the youngest? Because for like 10 years, I was the young daughter, the youngest. And then when my mom and now dad got together, suddenly I was the middle, the older middle. So I don't know.
You probably have qualities of both, but I would guess more so of the younger because of that, that formative year and that being your nuclear family.
Yeah.
What's funny about mine though is never once intentionally or consciously did I set out to write an autobiography here. And stop me if I'm getting ahead of myself with this answer. I love the sibling dynamic, and my family is really funny because I have my oldest sister who went to Duke Medical School and is the total Jules type A. I have my brother who was a high school dropout, lived in the Bahamas, unwed parent, drug addict at one point. And then you have me who kind of like parties a little bit, but I eked out a degree from Florida State, like really, really in the middle of these vast extremes. And we are the three closest siblings of anybody I know. And we are the most unlike, when you see us together and we say, oh, these are my siblings. People say, were you like in a some group. No, we had the same biological parents. Like, we don't look alike, we don't act alike, but they are my close, the only thing, you know, as close as my children and my husband to me, really. I mean, we talk every day. My husband's like, are you talking to your brother again? Oh my God, I love him. Yes, I am. But that being the case, I never set out to write about us, but I love the sibling dynamic. And both of our parents have passed away. But at the time of the writing of this book, only my dad had passed away. And when my dad died, people would say to us, you know, you're so lucky you guys are so close. I'm like, yeah, like I can't imagine going through this without them. Like that would be horrible. And they're like, no, you just don't know how ugly it can get. And I'm thinking, why would it get ugly? Like, because I can't wrap my brain around that, right? Because it's not my experience. But I thought that made a really interesting story, right? About these siblings who they're not getting along. And so the controlling mom from the grave, because I had a controlling mom, so I knew that person. I knew that character. She was going to continue to control them from the grave. And I loved that. I loved her manipulating them and forcing them to work together when they're completely estranged. But the ironic twist that my story takes is that my mom did pass away after I finished writing this book. And the circumstances around that were not that dissimilar to what happened in this book. My mom did not die with $37 million, but she did have an estate, and it was very, it sort of worked to pit us against each other. And she was not close to any of us. So at the end of the day, it was just kind of funny. Like, we didn't have to go out of our way to work together, but it was definitely like the three of us, you know, thank God I had them was the point. And that's what I wanted to get across in this book, but it certainly was not intentional.
Yeah. How about you, Maggie? Are you real close to your siblings?
I am, and we all live within, you know, 20 minutes of each other. I was thinking when my mother passed away, she didn't leave $37 million, unfortunately. And she just, you know, had house and things like that, so that we got in touch with an attorney just to make things easier. And we all went. My sister was the executor, and the attorney said to us that we were the most together group that she had ever worked with, that most people she deals with are fighting and angry and
that's what I hear.
Fighting over things, and it shocked me. Yeah. So
it's funny because when my mom was well, we would all go home. You know, we all live in 4 different states: Florida, North Carolina, Texas, and California. So if we were all home at the same time, and my mom was perfectly healthy, she would say, "All right, guys, I want you to put your names on sticky notes and put it on the things you want." And we were always like, no, like, we would never fight over your grandfather clock, ever. You know, and she's like, well, you'll see. And part of me was like, oh my God, you want us to fight. We don't fight. We're not. It's never going to happen. And it didn't. We were, you know, dividing her things was gruesome and horrible. But we'd look at something and, you know, my poor brother with tears streaming down his face would go, you know, he's 10 years younger than me and 12 years younger than my sister. He's like, I actually remember every Saturday mom changing the, you know, like you had to manually wind this grandfather clock. And we're like, dude, take the clock. Like, I love that you have that memory. Like, that's amazing. You know, I for 1 second, I can't imagine going, yeah, well, I remember that too. So we'll just talk to the attorneys. Like, yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, when
we are the anomaly.
I guess.
And the fighting is the norm.
Yeah.
That's sad.
I mean,
it's sad. Like, as a mother, that's sad, right? Like, do I have to worry about my kids fighting over, you know, I don't have a grandfather clock, but I don't want to have to delineate who gets what. I want them to, where they are in their life when that happens, and what is meaningful to them. And they better not fight, or I'm going to ground them. I'm going to haunt them.
Exactly. Okay, so did you guys felt like you identified well with the middle sister in the story mostly? I know Jenna was like, well, you wrote it, so.
You know, it's funny though, I didn't. And I actually resonate more with Jules because I'm a total type A. But again, this is what I started to say. So I was creating these characters, and I printed out from the internet lists of birth order qualities because I'm super fascinated by that. I mean, sure, if you've ever looked into that at all, it's like, you know, X percentage of presidents are firstborns and X percentages of you. They have very, you know, without being too sweepingly generalistic, but there are traits that are very common, right, to first, middle, last only. And so that was what I was going for. And then as I'm writing it, you know, when I was writing Jules, I'm like, oh my gosh, that's totally Lori. And then I'd write Lexi, who is just a hot mess. I'm like, oh, that's Brian. Like, it's so funny how, but I wasn't intentionally doing it. Do you know what I mean? Like, to reflect us. But the funny thing is when my sister read this book, she's like, oh my gosh, it's totally us. And my brother goes, in complete sincerity, he's like, well, which one am I? We're like, dude, you're the hot mess. What do you mean? You are the hot mess. It should not be a big surprise.
How about you, Maggie?
I also identify with Jules. I didn't identify with Brooke at all. And Lexi, I think I read somewhere in the book, it talked about, you know, the youngest being, or the middle being the peacemaker. Yeah. And that was really my little sister, my youngest sister. She was the peacemaker. And I was more the responsible one. And my older sister, she wasn't a hot mess, but she was the flighty, you know, one. So yeah, we were kind of
mixed up
there. How about you, Margaret?
Well, for sure. When I first read the book, and when I started the book, I read the prologue where it was when the girls were still little. And then I put it down. I didn't read it again for like a week and a half because I was like, oh, I'm going to be on the plane to Chicago. I'll read it then. So I wrote, you know, in the group, which sister after reading the prologue did you identify with? And I identified with Lexi because I was just like, F the world, you know, I don't know. That was just, but it's not me anymore.
I can't imagine you being Lexi. I can't imagine that.
Promise. I mean, I'm a high school dropout. I moved out when I was 17. I was like this little rebel. And then, yeah, all the extra, not to a total extent of Lexi, but, you know. I was like, but then
some things we don't need to know.
Wow.
Anyway, wink, wink. But as I got older, and and I think it's almost as if as soon as I had kids, I was like, oh, you know, I get now why my mom was being that way, and I get now why this, that, and the other, you know. And so I changed a lot after having kids, and I started teaching, and well, I started teaching before I had kids, but now I'm the one that's like the caretaker of my parents, and my siblings are all off, you know, doing their things. And so then I later started identifying more with the older two sisters.
Yeah.
So.
Interesting.
Maybe it's.
Alexi's often do clean up their act. My brother's almost responsible now. I mean, relatively, he's super. He owns his own business, and he's, you know, financially successful, but he still has hot mess moments.
Yes, and I think partly too, my husband is like, he never went through that wild child phase in his life, so I don't know. I don't want to say he's envious of it, but he's like, I never got to like party and all this, but this is also why I have a screen here, so no one can see the mess that is still my house.
Oh, that's fine.
Okay, so we talked about that. Let me see. There were some questions in the chat real quick before I move on. Hello, Christine Ray. Let's see. Christine says, how do your sisters feel about this? I'm guessing the book. How did they feel like? We kind of talked about it a little bit.
You know, so my younger brother doesn't read anything, so he's just heard about it. Super supportive. But my older sister is, and I say this hopefully not sounding boastful because I will give you the qualifier to it. She's my biggest fan. And I say that because, I mean, with so much gratitude, because she is very religious. She is very straight-laced. Like, if she's really mad, she might say fiddlesticks, you know, and I have the F word on page 1. And it has to be painful for her to read these things. And she's probably like saying rosary beads the whole time, you know, and praying for my poor depraved soul. And she still, you know, promotes it and tells people about me. And like, she could be ashamed of me. She really could, because in her world, I'm bad. I'm kind of bad. I'm a little bad. I'm a potty mouth, and, you know, Lexi's basically a prostitute, you know, if you didn't pick up on that. And, you know, and she loves me and supports me and thinks everything I write is the best thing she's ever read. So thank you, Lauren. She's going to get me into heaven if there is one, just so you know.
Knock, knock, knock. Okay. Oh, no, I was asking questions in the chat. Okay. Nellie says she's an only child and she had 2 children and she had to learn to share everything. Yes. And Dewana says, I'm the middle child, younger sister, older brother. I've always been close with both of them, but even more so now that we lost her brother, we have talked about it and we will not fight over stuff. Yeah, that's tough.
Oh, amen. You want stuff? Like, really?
Yes. Okay, so let's see. There was one other thing. About Lexi. Like, I'm still sort of that I don't look before I leap kind of personality. I still do that sometimes, and I've really tried to get over that. Anyway.
Yeah.
So my next question was, do you guys think that Juliana would have done this if she had only had 1 child?
Oh.
What do you think? I don't know.
Hmm.
Well, because the siblings were all, estranged, sort of, and it seemed like she was trying to get them to work together and get back together and be stronger and better together. But I don't know.
I think, knowing her as well as I think that I do, that there would have been some control aspect because, what I didn't mean for Juliana to be this horrible person. She was just damaged. And again, that's another thing that I'm fascinated with, like the whole resiliency concept, why horrible things can happen to some people and they can completely bounce back and, John Walsh, start the John Walsh Foundation, whereas other people just spiral and never, ever get out of that. I have one of my best friends lost a child. I delivered the eulogy at a 2-year-old's funeral. It was the most horrific moment of my life. And she bounced back. And I look at her every single day. It's been 6 years. And I think, I don't know that I could joke and laugh. And I don't know what it is that makes some people able to do that. My parents divorced, 15 years before my mom died. And my mom never really got over that. And, and it wasn't like they'd had this fabulous marriage, it was miserable the whole time. It was miserable the whole time. And then they finally ended it. And she couldn't resign herself to the fact that he moved on. She never did. He remarried. She never did. And there was so much bitterness around that and so much bitterness about, us having a relationship with his new wife. And we, my siblings and I, again, were like, this has nothing to do with you. But that was part of this Juliana character was, why could she never get over this? Why does it have to taint every single thing? It's horrible and it's tragic, but horrible, tragic things happen to people every minute of every day. And some of them rise above and some of them never do.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
What do you think, Maggie?
I think that's exactly true. One of the questions in the back of my book, you still hear that echo? Because I hear.
No, I don't.
A little bit.
One of the questions in the back of my book was whether your opinion of Juliana changed. Did you feel differently about her from the beginning of the book to the end? And at first I thought, no, I thought she was
manipulative.
You can say it, Maggie.
Yeah. No, I can't. I'm like your older sister.
You call her a biscuit and we'll know what you mean.
Certain things I think but don't say. But anyway, but toward the end of I still felt like she was the witch, but I felt sorry for her because obviously the person who can make the most difference in someone's life sometimes is your parents, your mother. And she chose not to be able to make that difference in her children's lives when she could have done it while she was alive and to benefit herself as well as them.
Right.
So I think she probably would have done it if she had just one child because she couldn't connect with them.
Right.
Face to face, apparently. She just couldn't bring herself to do it.
The analogy or the metaphor or, my kids, they'll come home and they'll talk about kids at school who say or do really mean things, right? Horrible things, horrible. I mean, they're 11 and 13. The stuff that goes on in those ages is, I can't wrap my brain around it sometimes. And what I tell them every time is when people do things like that, it's always out of hurt. It's always, 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 you're mean to somebody because something inside of you hurts. There's no other reason. If you're happy and whole and everything in your life is great, you're not doing these little, these things that kids do to each other. And which is why my kids aren't mean, because they're happy and whole and they have this really good life and they know it and I know it and we talk about it all the time. And so I don't think that changes when you're a grown up. I think like my mom wasn't a bad person. She was hurt and unhappy and never, ever, ever got past that. And to me, like that, whether it's the kids or, an old woman that dies estranged from her family, I want it to evoke some sort of pity. I want you to go, wow, how horrific would that be that you can't get past your own hurt at the expense of your children? Like, to me, that's the worst, the worst thing you can do as a parent.
Right. Yeah. I didn't look at it that way, but you're right. All you're thinking about is the effect instead of the cause. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Totally. Okay. Let's see. So this kind of jumps ahead in the book when she's got her sister's trying to set her up with her old high school boyfriend, but then she's together with the producer. I can't think of the producer's name, the book producer. Anyway, so
it's funny, neither can I.
I just wrote, I liked when the high school boyfriend shows up in the cab, and there was a producer guy, and everybody's getting ready. It's on Thanksgiving, right? Everyone's jump off of Lexi's crazy cliff, and I just like that because it, like, things in real life get messy like that, and there wasn't and then she sets him up, her up with her ex-boyfriend, and everything's a perfect little wrapped up in a present. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But like in real life, like that's what happens. You're like, as soon as you find somebody, all of a sudden when I was single, it was like, as soon as I found somebody I really liked, somebody else I really liked came along, like,
right? It's messy. That's one of my favorite scenes in the whole book, that whole van down in Malibu. I love that scene. It was so fun to write. It's so fun to write.
See that in a movie. I could see that scene in a movie.
Fingers crossed. I wrote the screenplay.
So
Did you?
much fun.
I did.
So somebody picked it up?
I have a producer interested in it, and she's kind of shopping. We're meeting in LA in like 2 weeks, so we'll see.
Yeah. There's a question coming up about us casting this thing, so.
I want to hear.
Okay. Well, then make sure we get to that one. Okay.
Dewana says in the chat that it is George.
George, that's right.
Yeah, George.
Oh, Christine wants to know, does your family, Lexi, which is your brother Brian, does he have a cop significant other? Did he find somebody to straighten him out?
God, he needs one so bad. If you're like a mid-30s female cop in the Austin, Texas area, just direct message me and I'll give you his number. He could really use a cop.
Okay, and Dewana says, I started out really not liking Juliana, but I ended up feeling sorry for her because she couldn't get past the death of her spouse. Yeah.
Thank you. I'm so happy.
And then Christine says, Jenna, you need to be more open and not such an introvert.
I'll try, Christine.
And she says, I'm guessing Juliana, perhaps she didn't know how to motivate them positively. This is true.
Yeah.
Okay, so when did you, when you were reading the book, when did you become aware that mom might have been lying about the money? Because I started getting this sneaking suspicion. Did you, Maggie?
I did fairly early on. I think I thought there's no money. There's going to be no. And maybe it was when she was talking about writing the end of the book.
Yeah.
And how she ended it, and then later it implied that she might have changed the ending when she was working with George. But
right.
I figured probably fairly early on, it was in the back of my mind that there probably wasn't any money. That
go on.
That this was just all about the benefit of them not only getting together, but getting their lives in order.
Right. I don't remember exactly where I was in the story, but I remember I was sitting on the plane on the way to Chicago, and I was like, I got to read the last page.
Oh, you didn't!
It was bugging me so bad. I was like, I have to know.
Oh.
So I did.
I've never done that in my whole life. The most I have done is, like, if I think somebody might die If I need to know if somebody's going to die, I'll flip through and just see if I see their name in a dialogue. And I'm like, okay, they didn't die. But then if I don't see it, I'm like, oh, now I'm going to be depressed for the whole rest of this book.
Yeah, and I think I've maybe done that a couple times ever, but it was just nagging at me like I have to know.
I do it a lot, actually. I have to do it if there's like two love interests in a book and I really want the one to come out on top. I always have to look at the last page to see if my guy or my girl.
Mr. Darcy wins.
So has reading the last page, have you ever read the last page before you got there and decided, oh my God, I'm not finishing this book because I don't like the way it ends?
I never have.
Maggie?
No.
Okay.
Not.
But then aren't you like pissed the whole rest of the book? Like if I know it's not going to be my guy, my team loses, I'm like, I don't want to read this.
I don't know that that's ever happened, actually, now that you say that.
Okay.
And if I know that it's my guy, I'm like, it's such a relief to not have to worry about that.
Yeah.
You know what? You guys are helping me so much because I'm working on a novel right now and I hadn't decided exactly how it's going to end, which I hear is terrible. Like you're supposed to know this before you write the first word, but I don't because they're kind of making their way. But I'll tell you what, the last page is not going to give it away. Not going to give it away.
I did.
Cheaters.
I know. But it was just like nagging at me. Oh, I bet she didn't. You know.
So the good thing is that the thing about this, I'm probably just jumping ahead, but the thing about this book was I have to admit I wasn't crazy about it in the beginning. And I didn't really identify with any of the sisters. And I thought, I don't even know if I really want to read this book, except I want to go to the book club, discussion. And then I found myself worrying. I found myself worrying about Jules. And I had to keep telling myself, she's not real. Hello.
Aww.
But the fact is that when you have to read the last page because you have to know and you worry about Jules, then that's a book that's just a great book because it.
And it was Jules that you were worried about?
I was worried about Jules. Yeah, because the other girl so aggravated me. And
I love
Brooke sneaking her, food, and I just worried about her, and she worried that it was on her, and yeah.
Because you related to her.
Yeah.
I basically raised my little brother, and so Lexi, I gotta tell you, in the very first draft, she was 200% worse.
Wow.
And my editor, who I love at Berkeley, said, nobody's going to be rooting for her. And I'm like, no, you root for her even more because she's so damaged. She's so damaged. And she got the shittiest end of that stick. And like her transformation will be I fought for it so much. And she was like, nope, you gotta and so I was just everywhere I could just eke. Like I needed her to be my brother. I needed her to rise so far and so profoundly and I just wanted to take care of her. I love her. I love her. She's my favorite. Brooke kind of annoyed me. I was like, come on, grow a pair. But Lexi, I love.
No, I agree with the grow up hair. Well,
she kind of did, and it was pretty awesome, I thought.
No, this is true. And I agree with Maggie. When I first started it, I identified it with Lexi, but I was like, okay, here we go. And we'll go, oh gosh, the author's coming on. I got to finish, but I'm not saying it to be mean, but then I couldn't put it down after I got on the plane because I read the prologue and then I didn't read it for like a week and a half. And then I got on the plane and I started reading it. And I'm in Chicago at this conference and I keep finding myself sneaking off to my hotel room to read some more. So it really, hooked in, got that hook in me. And I did want to see, like, was she going to dump this loser? Middle sister. I have to scroll back because I can't think of the name. So it was just, I got hooked into it. I didn't mean to say that to sound mean, but.
No, it's all right. It happens. I'm glad.
But I guess what was getting me was that I just kept thinking, they are so ungrateful. Their mom left them all these millions of dollars and they're just like, oh, what a bee. She's making me work for it. you know? And I was just like, what are you talking about? She just left you millions of dollars. That was probably when I was like, oh, okay. But it got better.
Oh, good.
Yeah. No, I did. And then I was like, you know what? People really, change is hard, you know? And I think I didn't give them credit for, you know, what would I do? You know, how hard would it be for me to change whatever random thing my mom chose for me? You know, change is tough.
Right.
So, and then that was my next question. Would you have like just piddled around for months if there were millions of dollars on the table? Well, you know.
Well, like exactly like you said, think about any change. Like what are the things people want, the change people want the most in the world? People want to lose weight.
Yeah.
People want to quit smoking. People want to eat healthier. The benefits of any of those three things, you could arguably say, are worth millions of dollars, right? To live longer, to feel better every single day. Like, you know, to not feel like, oh, my pants are tight and I look bad and I'm self-conscious. And all day, every day, people don't make those changes. And the carrot is there. We know it's possible. We see the Jenny Craig commercials. We see the, you know, the people with the things in their throat who didn't quit smoking. We know. Yeah. We know, but we don't make those changes. So I didn't think it was all that out of the, I'm blanking on the word, such a suspension of disbelief or belief,
right.
that they wouldn't immediately like write the book in a month. NaNoWriMo, I can write a book in a month. People do it all the time. Yeah, but not always when the pressure's on. You know, it's like an Olympic athlete that, you know, trips on in the ice skating. Well, they've done that routine 8 million times perfectly, but can you do it perfectly when the pressure's on? That's, you know, what distinguishes an Olympian. So
yeah, I mean, I think for myself, that's definitely what I learned the most was like, just cut some people some slack, Margaret. You know, what would you have done? Seriously, you know, it's easy to judge when it's somebody else.
Right. And like, as a writer, one of the stories I tell, I speak at conferences, and, you know, when I was in college, I took probably my very first creative writing class. And every week, there was no teaching, it was just writing. But we learned a lot because we learned from our peers. But every week, the teacher would either write or say a word, right? I mean, one week it was a peanut. And you had 45 minutes, it was a 90-minute class, you had 45 minutes to write, and then we'd all read what we wrote. And you could personify the peanut, you could write about how the peanut is harvested, any kind of writing you want. And every week he would say the word and I would be like, it was by hand because they didn't even have laptops back then. This is like 1987. But, you know, I would write, and it never stopped. The very last week of class, he walked in and he drew a question mark on the board. And I was like, are we writing about question marks? Is that the, and he's like, you can write about whatever you want. I sat like a deer in headlights for probably 35 minutes. Like, what am I gonna write about? What am I gonna write about? What am I gonna, okay, I can write about anything. I can write about anything. I can write about this. I could write, like, without that direction, I was completely paralyzed. So that was actually why I picked that for Jules, because when I sit down to write a new book, you know, if you've ever seen the Elizabeth Gilbert TED Talk, Maggie, you need to go watch that one. She talks about, you know, the aftermath of success. And she had written a bunch of books before Eat, Pray, Love, but Eat, Pray, Love was the big success. And every person that she encountered after that basically said some version of the same question, which was, you know, do you think you can ever top that? Can you ever even come close? Can you, like,
it's Orson Welles.
You're not, and she's like, what are you talking about? Like, no, it's creativity. There's no bottom to it. But then she started second guessing herself. And it is like every time you finish a book, you're like, oh God, what am I going to write about now? Like, you don't even get a moment to enjoy that sense of completion. It's like, I have to be working on something, and it's a little panicky. And when you finally get the idea, it's like, okay, thank God, it's going to be okay.
Yeah, I can imagine. I mean, then will they like it as much as the first one?
Right.
What will they say? You know, like that's why I said with like Orson Welles, it was Citizen Kane that was like it, and then everything after that was like, oh no, it's not as good as Citizen Kane. You know. Okay, so my next question was, if your mom had left a will with these kind of stipulations, what do you think that she would be asking you to change?
Me.
Or you, Maggie, or me.
Oh, I know what my mother would want to do.
Or in the chat.
Yeah. I'd have to go to church.
Oh.
I would have to go to church and mean it. There would be something about, but you need to mean it.
How can you gauge meaning it though?
I don't know, but she would have had a way.
How
What
about you,
about you
Maggie?
guys?
So, because I went to church as long as my mother was alive. It was when she passed away that I stopped going to church.
Such a better daughter than I am.
She would have wanted me to lose weight. She was always on me about my weight. Yeah.
Oh,
And that couldn't feel good, you know.
No, it was an awful thing. Yeah, it was an awful thing.
gosh, I don't know what my mom. I mean, maybe lose weight, but I don't think she would. I mean, I became a teacher because she pressured me to become a teacher. You know, I'm just like, what else would she want me to do? Well, I'll ask her.
Yeah. Give her the book, and you know, maybe you can change something.
Let me know. First, Mom, get that 37 million lined up.
Yeah, exactly. I'll do whatever. I'm easy.
That's right.
But the interesting thing to me was that they each found it easier to help the other change than themselves, right? So,
But isn't that funny? Like if a friend tells you their problems, you're like, well, that's a no-brainer, right? It's
do this and this, and
done. You're golden. Why can't we do that with ourselves? It's always harder, I think, to solve your
Jules couldn't bring herself to send off her book, but Brooke did the research, and then Brooke couldn't bring herself to contact Billy or Bill.
Billy, yeah.
But Jules,
No
so
problem.
they each had no problem doing what the other needed to be done.
Yes. And we have that conversation all the time. Like, oh, my sister Elaine, if only Elaine would do this, this, and this, like I told her, then everything would be fine. If only Jay would do blah, 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 blah.
If only we around the world. That's what I say all the time.
That's right. Okay, my next question is, which sister had it the hardest, in your opinion? Like their task was the hardest task?
In mine?
Both of you, either.
I want to hear Maggie.
I think Brooke, just because I can so identify with the weight thing, that I think I know how hard it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just because I struggled so much with it myself.
You look amazing too, Maggie.
What's that?
I said you look amazing.
Yeah, you do.
Oh, thank you.
I would say Lexi because, well, we knew going into it that Jules wanted to write the book, and we knew going into it that Brooke wanted to lose weight, but Lexi didn't want to be of the establishment. Lexi didn't want to, you know, her whole persona was built on the middle finger, basically. I mean, it was, right? That was her shell was, she didn't cry, you can't hurt her. And the easiest way to accept, you know, not being invited to the party is saying, I didn't want to go to that party anyways, right? That's what you do. And so for her, she had to change her thinking. You know, she had to be like, it's okay, which she didn't until Rob, and until she realized that she did like children and everything had been a facade. And she started, I think her growth trajectory was the biggest, and intentionally, because I love her.
So do you think
love her?
Do you think if she had not met Rob, though, she would have done it? Because the money didn't seem to be as motivating a factor for her.
Right. I think the money wasn't as motivating for her in my head, because until she met Rob, she didn't know that it was even possible for her to make those necessary changes. She wasn't even trying. So she needed somebody to show her that she was lovable. And unfortunately, you know, and I'm not a big fan of the guy saves the day, but I think he held up a mirror to her and let her see that she was lovable in a way that Jules and Brooke never could. You know, there was just too much history and too much animosity and too much, you're not the boss of me. Whereas this was, I mean, Rob's love was like what you would expect from a parent. It was the unconditional love. You know, you're great, and nobody had ever told her that.
Yeah, I didn't think of it that way.
I think she needed to hear that, and that was enough for her to go, you know, until she finally believed it. I really like her.
No, I mean, when you put it like that, because I really did identify a lot with her from who I say who I was before, but I can totally see, because I was married previously, and when that went south, I completely, it was like that. I had to figure out who I was all over again. Like I moved, you know, away from where I was living, away from all my friends, tried to just sort of cut myself off from everybody and put myself in my own little hermitage almost, and just, you know, did a lot of soul searching and laid out, and I didn't have sisters to help me or a Rob to come along, but it was just like, you had to do, you know, if I, you know, if I did, I'm just getting at like, what would it have taken for her if Rob hadn't come along?
Right.
You know, just it would have had to have been a complete separation from everything and everybody she knew,
Right.
and just search, you know, and figure it out.
Right. I mean, Rob just came to me, but if it hadn't, it would have been more of the sisters. But
Yeah.
I think that would have been a harder road for her. You know, it would have been kind of an uphill battle.
Yeah, it's
like, you know, it's like your mom saying, "You're so beautiful." Like, I say that to my kids, and I swear to you, they're like, "Oh, you have to say that." Like, you know, and no, I don't. I really, you know, no, Mom, you're the mom. Doesn't count. Oh, okay, well, you know, sorry, but you are.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. Wait, Maggie, did you get to answer the question? You did. Okay.
I did.
Okay. Okay. So here's the question about casting, because we're getting close out of time. Who would you cast as the three sisters?
I want somebody else to tell me who they'd cast.
I've got a couple. Maggie, do you have ideas?
No, you asked this question the first book that, and I, you know, I don't really watch movies or TV, so I don't.
Okay.
I don't really have anybody in mind. I'm sorry. Next time I'll have to really give us a thought ahead of time.
I think Amy Schumer totally needs to be Brooke.
Brooke is the middle one, right?
Yeah.
Amy Schumer. Yeah. I'm going to Google her, because now I can't think of her face.
Schumer, like the funniest person on the planet. She is the
funniest person.
Yeah,
yeah. Okay. I see who that. Yes,
I think like a Kristen Wiig could be Jules, and maybe Megan Fox for Brooke. Just some hottie. There's lots of them. Mila Kunis. I mean, what? Yeah. So there's plenty. She's easy to cast.
Okay, so here's who I came up with. I came up with Rebel Wilson as.
Oh,
I'll screen share, because I pulled up a picture.
Yeah.
Just so you, in case somebody doesn't. She's Australian, so she can just not.
Oh, she's hilarious.
Right?
I like her.
So I thought she would be funny, and then I was just like, maybe like a Miley Cyrus for the
for Lexi.
For Lexi, yeah. But that was all I came up with. I couldn't think of anybody. I'm trying to stop my screen share.
Well, you're so professional with the screen share.
Thank you very much. But I couldn't think of anybody. But you're right, like a Megan. Well, you said Megan Fox for maybe
Megan Fox.
Brooke. That would be good. Yeah, I'm excited. I hope that it gets made, because it was really good.
Oh, thank you. Me too.
Okay, where did the rest of the questions go? And then the one thing I would say is I like to listen to audiobooks, and it's not on Audible.
It's not yet, but it took them like 2 years or a year and a half after Pretty Much Screwed, which was my novel before this, to do the audiobook. So hopefully it's coming.
Yeah, I mean, because I read a lot, but as a mom, like, I listen, because otherwise I never get laundry folded, or I never.
I hear ya.
So like, oh, there's no Audible.
I will let my publisher know that request has been officially made.
Moms need it.
Love it.
And then, how would you rate the book on a scale of 1 to 10?
Me, I give it a 10. I think it's a solid 10. I think it's probably the best book ever written. Maggie, what about you? How's that for me?
I'm going to say an 8, just because of the start for me was a little slow, and it took me a little time to get into it. But
fair enough.
I like to, you know, when I read a book, and I just read so many, but I like to think, well, what's the one thing I walk away with? Like, what's the one line I like to walk away with? What's the one thing I'll walk away with? And there was a line about, Rob tells Lexi at the end, you've probably always been good at a lot of things, but nobody ever told you before. When she says, I probably wasn't good at, and to me, that's kind of what the book left with me, that you need to you need to tell people, looking at it not from the receiver's end, but from, look, you know, my own children or my grandchildren if they ever arrive. You know, that's my pet peeve, when my grandchildren arrive. But to always tell people what they're good at, there's no reason not to say the good things, you know, as well as you critique your children, but there's always room for telling them what they're good at. So I give the book an 8. Sorry for the digression, but I give the book an 8 just because it was so memorable for me. It left me with such a great message, and it's just a little bit of a slow start, I felt like. Sorry.
No, I agree. And I like that idea, Maggie, of like thinking about what line or what did you walk away with? I really like that. You know, I'm going to start thinking about that a little more. Christine says, lesson, parent mood, emotional state affects the members of the family and the children and has a lasting effect in life. This is so true.
That is absolutely true.
This is
so true. I mean, one of my favorite quotes ever is, your kids are too busy watching every move you make to listen to a word you say.
Yeah. Yeah. And then I would probably say 8 as well. For similar reasons. Just when I first started, it was like, but when I got into it, it was very gripping, and I read it within just a couple days when I was at the Ecom conference. So it was really good. It was really good. Okay. So I'm going to say bye to people in the chat. Do you guys have any ending things that you want to say before I sign us all out?
I want to thank Christine for hooking me up with you guys. And thank you guys for having me. It was really fun.
And thank you for coming. It was so nice to meet you.
I appreciate it. Thank you for reading my book.
No, thanks. It was really good. And I'm so glad I got to know you and more about you. And I was honestly, I was like, ooh, she did a TED Talk. So awesome. You know, that for me was really cool. So in the description box below, you guys, if you're interested, I linked Jenna McCarthy's website and her TED Talk. So if you want to go check those out, they're down there. Also, if you are not following us on Facebook, our group is Chatterbooks on Facebook. If you can't find it, just send me a message and I'll help you. And then next month's book, we're doing Still Life by Louise Penny, which is a Chief Inspector Gamache book, which I've read before and it's so good. It'll be perfect for fall, a nice cozy mystery. And then also our panel rotates. So if you are ever interested in jumping in and being one of our panelists, let me know. We mentioned it, we talk about it a lot in the group. And again, if you've been on before but you want to come on again, the door is open. So that's it. Thank you so much, Maggie, and thank you so much, Jenna, for coming on and talking about your book.
Thank you.
And thanks everyone in the chat. All right, we'll talk to you later. Bye.
Bye.